The hangar was silent except for the hiss of broken wires and the faint hum of dying energy cells. The great armor stood in the center, a towering warsuit taller than any alien in the Coalition army. Its chest plate was cracked, its arms hung limp, and black smoke still curled from the seams where the enemy's weapons had torn through it. For many in the Coalition, this suit was a symbol of hope. It was called the Guardian armor, built from alloys older than some civilizations, forged in secret foundries of the Tarkan Empire. Entire fleets had fought under its shadow. Its pilot was a commander known for her courage, and her victories were celebrated across the stars. But now the armor was broken. Dozens of engineers worked around it, climbing ladders, scanning with glowing tools, and speaking in worried tones. Each belonged to a different species: slender Keltari with 4 arms, insectoid Fixari who clicked as they argued, tall Sirash whose skin shone like glass. All of them were masters of machines. All of them were baffled. The Kreks had struck again. Their weapons melted through shields carved through metals and bent energies in ways no scientist could explain. Against their black ships, the Guardian armor had stood tall for a while, but even it had fallen. In the corner of the hangar, unnoticed by most, a human stood quietly watching. His name was Elias. He was young, his uniform plain, his tools old compared to the shining scanners the aliens carried. To most of the Coalition, humans were newcomers, primitive, fragile, and unimportant. Their technology was centuries behind. They were not known for science or strength or wisdom. They were barely known at all. Elias had been assigned here almost by accident. He was listed as assistant engineer, though no one had asked for his help. Whenever he offered, the alien engineers would wave him away. Too simple-minded, one had said. Humans lack understanding, another had laughed. Elias had stopped speaking after that. He only watched. Now he watched as the Siraj chief engineer lowered his scanner and shook his shining head. "It cannot be repaired," he said, his voice heavy. "The Krek's damage is too deep. The circuits are burned. The alloys are destabilized. Even if we patch it, it will collapse again under stress." The other engineers murmured in agreement. Some began to pack their tools. Others turned to the commander, who stood silently at the edge of the room. She was tall, her skin a pale blue, her armor scorched and bent. She had fought inside the Guardian armor when it fell. Now she stood with arms crossed, her face unreadable. Her soldiers waiting by the door shifted uneasily. Everyone was waiting for her to speak, to give an order, but she said nothing. At last, one Fixari engineer clacked his mandibles. "The armor is lost. We must build a new one." "Months, perhaps years." "Years," the Sirash agreed. "We do not have years. The Kreks attack every cycle. They will return before long." The commander lifted her head. "Then what do you suggest?" Silence. No one answered. It was then Elias stepped forward. His boots echoed on the floor as he moved closer to the broken armor. The aliens turned to look, some with annoyance, others with faint curiosity. He cleared his throat. "I can try," he said simply. Laughter broke the silence. The Keltari engineer clapped 2 of his 4 hands together. "You, a human? You have no scanners, no nanoforges, no knowledge of this alloy." Another shook his head. "Child's talk. Go back to your corner." Elias's face reddened, but he did not move. He looked up at the armor again, smoke rising from its wounds. "Maybe I don't know your machines," he said, louder this time. "But I know machines. I've fixed things all my life. Engines, hulls, weapons, things others threw away. If it's broken, it can be fixed. Let me try." The laughter faded to uneasy murmurs. The commander's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, her boots ringing against the metal floor, and stopped in front of Elias. "You think you can repair what the best engineers of the Coalition cannot?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but there was steel inside it. Elias swallowed hard. He felt every gaze on him, heavy and doubtful, but he did not step back. "I don't know if I can," he admitted, "but I'll try. Sometimes you don't need perfection. You just need something that works." The words hung in the air. They were strange to the aliens. To them, technology was art, precision, perfection. The idea of just working was almost insulting. Yet the commander did not dismiss him. She studied his face for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "Very well. You will have one night. If you fail, we discard your attempt and build anew. Do you accept?" Elias nodded, his heart pounding. The engineers muttered among themselves, some shaking their heads, others whispering that it was a waste of time. But the commander raised her hand, silencing them. "Clear the hangar," she ordered. Reluctantly, the aliens obeyed. One by one, they filed out, casting doubtful looks back at Elias. Soon the great doors closed, and the hangar was silent again. Only Elias remained, standing before the broken armor. He took a deep breath and set down his old, battered toolbox. The work began. The hours passed slowly. Elias climbed over the armor like a man repairing an ancient ship. He pried open cracked panels, coughing as smoke poured out. He replaced melted circuits with wires from his own kit. Wires that were not designed for such advanced machines but could carry power all the same. He hammered bent metal into shape, using force where delicate alien tools had failed. Where the armor's systems were too complex, he rerouted them, creating new paths around the broken ones. When he found holes too wide to patch, he welded plates of ship steel over them. It was ugly. It was uneven. But little by little, the armor began to hold together. By the second hour, sweat soaked his shirt. By the fourth, his hands were blistered and blackened. But he did not stop. He thought of Earth, of broken tractors in muddy fields, of old ships patched again and again to fly one more time. He thought of how his people had survived, not by building perfect things, but by fixing imperfect ones. He whispered to himself as he worked. Not perfect, just working. That's enough. Lights flickered. A low hum returned to the armor's chest. The smoke began to clear. Elias leaned back, wiping his forehead with a trembling hand. He stared at the towering warsuit, patched and scarred but alive. Its systems glowed faintly, weak but stable. He felt a surge of hope rise in his chest. The great doors opened again. The commander stepped inside, her soldiers behind her. The alien engineers crowded the entrance, curious despite themselves. Elias climbed down and stood before the armor, his tools hanging at his side. His hands shook, but he raised his chin. "I fixed it," he said. The hangar was silent. The armor's chest hummed softly, lights glowing across its frame. The commander's eyes widened just for a moment before she masked it. She stepped closer, running her hand along the patched plates and glowing seams. Behind her, the Sirash engineer muttered, "Impossible." The Fixari clicked nervously. "It should not even power on." But it did. The commander turned back to Elias. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but everyone heard it. "Only the human engineer fixed this armor," she said. Then, slowly, she looked at him. The commander stood silently in front of the repaired armor, her pale blue eyes fixed on the faint glow of its chest. The air in the hangar was heavy. Every alien engineer present stared in disbelief. None of their advanced machines, none of their perfect calculations had been able to bring life back to the Guardian armor. Yet here it was, humming again because of a human's hands. Elias felt his throat dry. He had spoken with more courage than he felt. His heart beat fast and sweat still clung to his skin from hours of work. The armor looked far from perfect. The patched plates were uneven, the welding lines ugly, the wiring messy compared to the neat designs of alien engineers. But it worked. That was all he had promised. The Sirash engineer stepped forward, his glass-like skin shining under the hangar lights. This should not be possible. The alloys were unstable. The systems were damaged beyond use. What did you do? Elias rubbed his hands against his trousers, leaving streaks of black soot. I fixed it, he said simply. The Keltari with 4 arms scoffed loudly. Fixed? This is not fixing. This is patching. This is primitive. But even he could not deny the faint hum of power filling the air. The commander's gaze lingered on Elias. She was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to her soldiers. Bring my pilot's helm, she ordered. The soldiers froze. One of them spoke nervously. Commander, you cannot mean to test it now. It could collapse. Bring it, she repeated. The soldier obeyed, hurrying to retrieve the helm. The aliens muttered among themselves, their voices low with fear and doubt. Elias stood frozen, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. The commander took the helm in her hands. Her long fingers traced the cracks across its surface. Then she lifted it and placed it on her head. With calm steps, she walked toward the Guardian armor. Commander, please. The Sirash began, but her raised hand silenced him. She placed her palm on the armor's chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low groan, the cockpit hissed open. The aliens gasped. Elias held his breath. The commander climbed inside. The cockpit sealed. Silence filled the hangar. The only sound was the faint pulse of the armor systems. Seconds stretched into long minutes. Then, with a sudden flare of light, the armor's eyes glowed. Its head rose. Its chest plates shifted as power surged through its frame. The Guardian armor moved. One arm lifted slowly but firmly, no longer hanging limp. Its great hand curled into a fist. Its legs straightened, carrying its full height. The floor shook as it took a single step forward. The alien engineers stumbled back in fear. The commander's voice boomed through the speakers. Operational! Cheers erupted among her soldiers. The engineers were too shocked to move. Elias felt his knees weaken with relief. The commander made the armor kneel slightly and then stand tall again. She tested the movements one by one. Arms raised, legs bent, the head turned. The systems responded with surprising speed, though some movements were slower than before. Sparks danced across one of the patched joints, but it held. It is not perfect, the Sirash muttered, shaking his head. No, the commander replied from inside the armor. It is enough. Her eyes found Elias again through the armor's glowing visor. Human, she said. You will explain how you did this. Elias hesitated. Everyone stared at him. He wanted to speak clearly, but his words felt clumsy. I didn't rebuild it. I just worked around what was broken. The main circuits were gone, so I cut new paths. The alloys were weak, so I added steel plates. It won't look like it did before, but it will hold. Where I come from, we fix things until they work, even if it's not pretty. The alien engineers looked horrified. To them, engineering was art. To hear someone admit he had patched together one of the greatest machines of the Coalition with not pretty methods was almost insulting. Yet no one could deny the truth. The armor worked. The commander's voice was calm. You speak as if failure does not matter. Elias met her gaze nervously. On Earth, we fail all the time. That's why we learn to try again. We don't need perfect. We just need something that lasts long enough to keep us alive. Her silence stretched for several seconds. Finally, she spoke. Perhaps that is why your people survive when others would fall. The words struck Elias deeper than he expected. No alien had ever spoken of humans with such respect. The commander stepped the Guardian armor back onto its platform. The cockpit opened and she emerged, tall and commanding. Her soldiers stood straighter as she passed. She walked to Elias and stopped before him. Your work has given us time, she said. Time we did not think we had. The Kreks will return soon, and when they do, this armor will fight again. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Elias stiffened under her touch. From now on, she said, you are not an assistant. You are chief engineer of this armor. The engineers gasped. Elias blinked, stunned. Me? But You repaired what no one else could, she cut him off. That makes you the most qualified. He had no words. His chest tightened and he felt every eye in the room upon him. Part of him wanted to protest, to say he was not ready, not skilled enough. But another part, the same part that had carried him through the long night of repair, told him to stand tall. He nodded slowly. I'll do my best. The commander's lips curved into the faintest smile. That is all I ask. The next days moved quickly. The Guardian armor became the center of the base. Soldiers came to look at it with awe. Engineers from different species gathered, whispering about the human who had repaired it. Some still doubted, some sneered, but others began to ask Elias questions, even seek his help. Elias worked day and night. He adjusted the wiring, checked the power flows, and reinforced the weak joints. He had no advanced scanners, so he relied on sound, touch, and instinct. He listened to the hum of the systems, tapped the metal to hear if it rang true, tightened every bolt by hand. At first, the aliens thought his methods foolish, but as they watched, some began to see the value. His fixes held. His patches worked. Where they would have waited weeks for new alloys to be delivered, Elias kept the armor running with whatever was at hand. The commander often came to watch. She never said much, but her presence gave him strength. On the fourth night, alarms rang through the base. The Kreks were approaching. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Soldiers rushed to their stations. Ships powered up, engines roaring. The engineers panicked, their voices overlapping in fear. The commander strode into the hangar, her expression calm but sharp. Prepare the Guardian armor, she ordered. Elias's heart pounded. He had known this moment would come, but not so soon. The armor was ready, or as ready as he could make it. He climbed quickly onto the platform, checking the connections one last time. The commander entered the cockpit again. The armor roared to life, its eyes glowing brighter this time, its systems stronger after days of repair. The hangar shook as Krek's weapons struck the outer defenses. Sirens wailed. The commander's voice echoed from the armor. We fight back. The Guardian rises again. Elias stood at the base of the platform, watching the armor march forward, patched and scarred but alive. Soldiers cheered, hope returning to their faces. For the first time, Elias understood. The war was not just about weapons or numbers. It was about holding on when everyone else gave up. The sky above the base was burning. Red fire streaked across the darkness as Krek's ships poured down from orbit, their weapons cutting through the shields of the Coalition outpost. The walls trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Soldiers shouted, their voices echoing with fear and urgency. Inside the hangar, Elias felt his stomach twist. He had never been in a war zone like this. Back on Earth, he had known storms, ship crashes, and machines breaking in dangerous ways. But this was different. This was war on a scale humans had only begun to imagine. The Guardian armor stood ready on the platform, patched and scarred, but alive. Its glowing eyes swept across the hangar like twin stars. Inside, the commander prepared herself, her voice steady as she spoke through the speakers. Enemy forces landing. Units 3 and 4 to the east wall. Armor will engage in the front line. Her soldiers saluted and hurried out. The alien engineers remained, some trembling, some frozen in awe at the sight of the armor moving again. Elias stayed near the base of the platform, checking the power flows on his improvised circuits one last time. His hand shook, but he forced himself to stay calm. The hangar doors opened. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the sound of distant explosions. The commander guided the Guardian armor forward. Its massive feet shook the floor as it marched, each step louder than the last. Elias, her voice came suddenly soft but firm through the comm channel. He almost jumped. Yes, Commander? You will remain in the hangar. If the systems fail, you must guide me through. Elias swallowed. Understood. She paused for a moment, then added, Trust your hands. They have not failed yet. The words filled him with unexpected strength. The Guardian armor stepped out into the battlefield. The Kreks were already there. Their ground forces had landed, dark machines shaped like twisted beasts crawling across the fields, firing beams that melted stone and metal alike. Their ships hovered above, unleashing fire on the Coalition defenses. The soldiers on the ground fought bravely, but the Kreks' weapons cut through shields with ease. Explosions tore craters into the earth. Screams filled the air. Then from the hangar, the Guardian armor emerged. The Coalition soldiers gasped. Some shouted in joy. Hope sparked in their eyes. The sight of the great suit of war rising again gave them courage. The Kreks forces turned their twisted machines toward it. Beams of searing energy lanced through the air, striking the armor's patched plates. Sparks flew. Smoke rose. But the armor held. Inside, the commander gritted her teeth and pushed forward. She raised the armor's great arm, its weapon systems glowing as Elias's rerouted circuits channeled power. With a roar, the armor's cannon fired. The blast lit up the night. A Krek's war machine exploded in a ball of fire, its pieces raining across the battlefield. The soldiers cheered. The Guardian armor moved faster than anyone expected. Elias had rebuilt its systems for efficiency, not beauty, and the result was strange but effective. Energy flowed where it was needed most. The armor's strikes were rough, sometimes uneven but powerful. It crushed Krek's machines with heavy blows. It fired beams that tore through enemy lines. Step by step, it pushed forward, and with it the Coalition soldiers advanced. Back in the hangar, Elias watched every movement on the monitor. His improvised wiring glowed dangerously, sparks spitting from some of the joints. He bit his lip, checking each reading carefully. Power flow steady, he whispered. Don't fail me now. Suddenly, one of the Krek's beams struck the armor's left shoulder. The patched plate melted halfway, alarms flaring on Elias's screen. He grabbed a wrench and smacked the side of the console, forcing the circuit to reroute. The alarm silenced. The power flow steadied. Come on, hold together, he muttered. The commander's voice came through, calm but sharp. Damage report? Elias answered quickly. Left shoulder hit hard, but systems are stable. You can keep fighting. Good, her confidence steadied him. The battle raged on. The Kreks pressed forward, but the Guardian armor was like a wall they could not pass. Every time they struck, the patched plates absorbed the damage just long enough for the commander to counterattack. At one moment, 3 Krex machines surrounded her. Their weapons fired at once, beams striking from every side. The armor staggered, almost falling. The soldiers watching screamed in fear. Elias's heart stopped. He slammed his hand against the console, rerouting power again, praying his patchwork would hold. Come on, he shouted. Inside the armor, the commander forced it upright. With a great sweep of its arm, she smashed one enemy aside. With the cannon, she blasted another into pieces. The third tried to strike again, but the armor grabbed it, lifted it high, and crushed it with terrifying strength. The field went silent for a heartbeat. Then the soldiers roared in triumph. But the Krex were not finished. Above, their ships charged weapons, gathering power for a devastating strike. A beam that size would destroy the armor in one blow. The commander looked up. Elias, suggestions. His mind raced. He saw the readings. The armor's shields were too weak. The patched plates would not survive such a hit. His hands shook as he searched for an answer. Then he remembered something. The rerouted energy in the chest systems. If he overloaded it, the armor could release a burst strong enough to disrupt the beam before it landed. But it was dangerous. The circuits might burn out completely. It's risky, Elias said, his voice trembling. I can overload the chest systems. It might block the strike, but it could fry everything. The armor could shut down. The commander was silent for a moment. Then she said, do it. Elias's hands flew across the console. He twisted wires together, forcing energy into the chest. Sparks exploded around him, burning his arms, but he ignored the pain. The monitors flashed red. Now, he shouted. The commander activated the system. The armor's chest glowed brighter than the sun for a brief second. A pulse of energy erupted upward, meeting the Krex ship's beam in midair. The sky cracked with light. The blast shattered, scattering across the night. The Krex ship shuddered, its weapons disabled. The battlefield froze in awe. Then with a roar, the coalition soldiers charged. The Guardian armor led them, its patched plates glowing with heat, smoke rising from its chest. The Krex lines broke. Their machines faltered. Their ships pulled back into the sky. The enemy retreated. Cheers filled the battlefield. The soldiers raised their weapons high, their voices echoing in victory. For the first time in months, they had pushed the Krex back. Inside the hangar, Elias collapsed against the console, breathing hard. His arms were burned, his hands black with soot, but his eyes were bright. He had done it. The Guardian armor returned, walking slowly but still standing tall. Its cockpit opened and the commander stepped out. She was covered in sweat, but her eyes burned with pride. She walked straight to Elias. The soldiers and engineers followed, their cheers still ringing. The commander stopped before him. For a long moment she said nothing, only studied his face. Then, with a voice that carried through the hangar, she said, "Without the human engineer, we would have fallen today." Every alien in the hangar turned to look at Elias. Their disbelief was gone. In its place was respect. The commander's eyes softened. She repeated the words she had spoken before, but this time with more weight. Only the human engineer fixed this armor. The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke rose from broken Krex machines, and the red glow of distant fires painted the horizon. Soldiers moved carefully, helping the wounded and checking their weapons. The Guardian armor stood tall, its patched plates still glowing faintly, a silent sentinel over the field. Inside the hangar, Elias leaned against a table, his hands still blackened from repairs. His arms ached and his mind raced. The victory had come, but the cost was heavy. Soldiers were tired, engineers were exhausted, and the Krex would return. Always the Krex returned. The commander entered the hangar, removing her helmet. Her pale blue face was streaked with soot and sweat, but her eyes shone with pride. "You did well," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The armor performed beyond expectation. You performed beyond expectation?" Elias shook his head. "I just patched it." "You fought the battle," she smiled faintly. "Do not underestimate what you did. That armor would have failed without your work. Without it, we would have lost everything. Every life here depended on your hands." He felt a strange warmth in his chest. No one had ever spoken to him like this before. Not on Earth, not in the colonies. Not even his parents. I don't know what to say, he admitted. "Say nothing," she replied. "Just be ready. There will be more battles." Word of the Guardian armor's return and the human engineer who fixed it spread quickly through the coalition. Soldiers talked in whispers at first, then openly. Engineers from other bases began to request Elias's guidance. Even the council, composed of representatives from the most powerful alien species, took notice. A message arrived on the base's communications terminal, stamped with the council's insignia. The words were formal, careful, but unmistakable in their meaning. The human engineer who repaired the Guardian armor is requested at the Central Command. Your actions have drawn attention. Your skills are needed to prepare for the next Krek strike. Elias stared at the message. He had never been to Central Command. He had never met council members, and now, they wanted him. The commander approached him, her hand on his shoulder. You will go, she said simply. You are no longer just an engineer here. You are humanity's representative in the war effort. Elias hesitated. But I'm just a human. I'm not like the council members. They are experts, I just fix things, she smiled. That is exactly why they need you. Sometimes knowledge is not what wins a war. Sometimes creativity and courage do. Remember that. Her words echoed in his mind as preparations were made, ships were readied, and supplies loaded. The Guardian armor was repaired once more after the battle, and new patches were added based on Elias's modifications. It was no longer just a machine. It was a symbol, a weapon infused with human ingenuity. The journey to Central Command was long. Elias studied the armor's systems as it traveled aboard the Coalition cruiser. He adjusted energy flows, tested new patches, and fine-tuned the circuits. Every adjustment made the armor more efficient, faster, and stronger. Engineers from other species watched him, sometimes skeptical, sometimes curious. By the time the cruiser reached the central planet, Elias had gained a small following. Alien engineers began to imitate his methods, copying his patchwork fixes and his way of thinking. Where before they had sought perfection, now they were learning to improvise. At Central Command, the council chamber was unlike anything Elias had imagined. Towering walls of crystal glowed faintly. Holographic displays floated in the air. Council members from dozens of species observed him with cautious interest. They had heard the reports, and now they were here to see if the human engineer was truly as capable as the stories suggested. Elias felt small, almost invisible in the grand chamber. But the commander from the battlefield remained at his side, a quiet support. A council member, a tall Sirash with shimmering skin, stepped forward. You are the human engineer who repaired the Guardian armor, he said. Explain how you accomplished what our greatest minds could not. Elias took a deep breath. I didn't rebuild it from scratch. I worked around what was broken. I patched the circuits, reinforced weak areas, and rerouted energy where needed. I used what was at hand. On Earth, we fix things this way all the time. Not perfect, but enough to work. There was silence. Several council members exchanged looks. Some of them scowled, their pride wounded. Others leaned forward, intrigued. Finally, the commander spoke. His work saved the base and countless lives. It allowed the Guardian armor to survive a battle it would otherwise have lost. The council murmured. The Sirash member nodded slowly. We see that now, perhaps. Humans have ways we do not understand. And in that moment, Elias realized something. Humanity had been dismissed, underestimated, ignored. Yet here they were, in the center of the galaxy's most critical war, not because of numbers or weapons, but because of their creativity, courage, and ability to adapt. Days passed quickly at Central Command. Elias worked alongside engineers from dozens of species. He taught them how to think differently, how to improvise, how to see possibilities where others saw only failure. Some alien engineers resisted, uncomfortable with what they called primitive methods. Others embraced it, quickly adapting his techniques to their own machines. The Guardian armor was repaired, upgraded, and tested continuously. Each improvement made it stronger. Its patched plates, once fragile, now carried new alloys fused by Elias's methods. Its circuits flowed more efficiently, its weapons fired faster. By the time the next Krex fleet was detected, the armor was ready, not just as a tool, but as a symbol of human ingenuity. The Krex attacked again, but this time the coalition was prepared. Reports of human innovation had spread across the fleets. Soldiers moved with new confidence. Ships were repaired faster, weapons recalibrated in hours instead of days. The Guardian armor led the front line. Its movements were sharper, stronger, faster. Where before it had stumbled under heavy fire, now it absorbed the attacks and countered with precision. Krek's machines fell before it one after another. Elias watched from Central Command via the comms link. His heart raced. He had not fought directly, but every patch, every rerouted circuit, every adjustment he had made mattered now. The humans' way of working, adaptable, fast, and fearless, was changing the war. The council members watched in awe. "He is extraordinary," whispered one. "A human, leading our forces without a single uniform fleet command," said another. Even the commander, now piloting the armor herself, paused for a moment mid-battle. Her eyes found Elias's name on the comms display. She smiled faintly and said, "Thank you, human. You made this possible." After the battle, the coalition forces celebrated. The Kreks retreated once more. Victory had been won. Not by numbers, not by perfect machines, but by the patchwork ingenuity of a single human. Elias stood quietly, his hands blackened from repairs, his body tired. Soldiers approached him from every species, offering thanks, bows, and even gifts. Some still hesitated, unsure how to honor a human in their traditions. But one thing was clear: he had earned respect. The commander approached. She placed her hand on his shoulder. "The galaxy has seen what humans can do. They are no longer just newcomers. They are creators, fixers, survivors." Elias nodded, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. He had not asked for recognition. He had only wanted to fix a broken machine. But now the galaxy was changing because of it. From this day on, humans would no longer be overlooked. They would be listened to, respected, and relied upon. The Guardian armor was no longer just a suit of war. It was a symbol of what humanity could bring to the universe. Elias looked at it, standing tall and scarred, glowing with the light of victory. He whispered quietly to himself, almost a promise. "We will survive. We will adapt. And we will rise." The council members, engineers, soldiers, and the commander all watched him. None doubted it anymore. Humanity had found its place. The galaxy had changed. News of the human engineer who repaired the Guardian armor had spread across dozens of star systems. Every council member, soldier, and engineer knew the name Elias. To some, he was a genius. To others, he was a symbol of human resilience and creativity. And now, the final battle with the Kreks loomed. The Kreks fleet was larger than ever. Black ships stretched across the horizon, their weapons charging with deadly precision. Entire planets trembled under their shadow. For years, the galaxy had lived in fear, thinking no coalition force could stop them. But now, hope had returned. On the command cruiser orbiting the battlefield, Elias moved among the engineers. His hands were once again dirty from adjustments and repairs, but his mind was sharp. The Guardian armor was ready, fully repaired and upgraded with every patch and improvement he had devised. The commander, still inside her armor, strode through the hangar, her presence commanding respect. Her glowing eyes scanned the horizon, where Krek ships appeared like shadows swallowing the stars. She stopped beside Elias, her voice calm but firm. "Are we ready?" she asked. Elias nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be. The armor is stable. The circuits can handle repeated overloads. Weapon systems are synchronized, and I've made it faster. It can strike harder than before." The commander's lips curved in the faintest smile. "Good. Then let us show them what humans can do." The battle began with the first Krek ships diving toward the planets below. Beams of searing energy ripped through defenses, melting metal and stone alike. Soldiers scrambled for cover. Ships fired in frantic bursts, but the enemy seemed endless. The Guardian armor moved to the front. Its glowing eyes scanned the battlefield. Every patched plate, every welded joint, every rerouted circuit worked together in perfect, chaotic harmony. Inside, the commander's voice was steady. "Elias, guide me through the first wave." He activated the comms. "Energy flow stable. Overload ready if needed. Weapon systems optimal. Engage." The armor's fist struck the first Krek's war machine. Metal crumpled, twisted, and sparks flew in a brilliant arc. Beams from the enemy hit the patched plates, but the armor absorbed them, rerouted energy, and countered with devastating force. Soldiers cheered. For the first time, they did not fear the Kreks. They watched in awe as the Guardian armor tore through their lines. The battle escalated. Krek's machines surrounded the armor, firing from every direction. The commander dodged, weaved, and struck with precision. One enemy leaped to attack from above. The armor caught it mid-air, crushing it with a single blow. Another aimed its beam at a nearby ship. The armor swung its arm, firing a cannon that tore through it before it could strike. Elias's hands moved constantly over the controls. He rerouted energy, patched circuits on the fly, and monitored the armor's stability. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. The patched plates creaked under pressure. But the armor held. Every strike, every movement was the result of his work, his ingenuity keeping the machine alive when it should have fallen. The Kreks faltered. Their attacks, once unstoppable, now met resistance. Machines fell. Ships exploded. The Guardian armor pushed forward, its steps like thunder across the battlefield. Hours passed. The Kreks regrouped, attempting a massive strike. A fleet of ships hovered above, charging a beam capable of destroying the armor in one hit. The commander inside it turned toward Elias. "Your advice," she said calmly. Elias's mind raced. The armor's chest systems could be overloaded again. If timed correctly, it could neutralize the beam, but this time it was even riskier. The armor might not survive. "I can do it," he said, "but it will push the armor to its limits. If it fails—" "I know the risk," the commander interrupted. "Do it." He took a deep breath and activated the system. Energy surged through the patched circuits, sparks flying across his console. He monitored every flow, every voltage spike. Then, with perfect timing, the Guardian armor released a pulse from its chest. The beam from the Kreks fleet struck the pulse mid-air. Light exploded across the sky, a blinding flash of power. The ships quivered, their weapons disabled. The armor staggered but did not fall. The Kreks shrieked in confusion. Their fleet began to retreat, their machines collapsing under the relentless force of the armor and the coalition soldiers who surged forward with renewed hope. By nightfall, the battlefield was cleared. Kreks machines lay in ruins. Coalition forces stood victorious. For the first time in generations, the galaxy had beaten the Kreks not with overwhelming numbers, but with strategy, creativity, and human ingenuity. The Guardian armor returned to the base, its patched plates scorched, dented, and glowing from energy surges. Soldiers and engineers cheered. The commander emerged, stepping out of the cockpit, her face tired but triumphant. She walked directly to Elias, who stood among a crowd of cheering aliens. She placed her hand on his shoulder, looking into his eyes. "Human," she said, "today you have not just repaired a machine. You have saved a galaxy." Elias shook his head, overwhelmed. I just fixed it." "You fought. Everyone fought." "I only did what I could," she smiled. "And that is why humans are special. You do not wait for perfection. You adapt. You survive. You rise when others fall." For the first time, he truly understood. Humanity had been dismissed, underestimated, ignored. But now, the galaxy had seen what humans could do. Not because of their weapons or their numbers, but because of their minds and courage. The council arrived at the battlefield the next day. Every member came to meet Elias personally. They offered thanks, rewards, and positions of authority. Some alien engineers sought to learn his methods. Others simply bowed in respect. One council member, the Sarash elder, spoke quietly. "Your people are unlike any we have known. Humans do not rely on perfection or tradition. They improvise, adapt, and create solutions where we see none. This is remarkable." Elias nodded quietly. "We do what we must to survive." And the commander, standing tall beside him, said again, her voice carrying across the battlefield, "Only the human engineer fixed this armor." Days later, the Guardian armor was repaired once more, not as a simple war machine, but as a symbol. Its patched plates bore the scars of battle, and each weld, each rerouted circuit was a testament to human ingenuity. Soldiers from every species came to see it. Children watched, dreaming of fixing machines like humans. Engineers copied Elias's methods. The galaxy began to change. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were leaders, innovators, and survivors. Where other species relied on perfect plans and exact calculations, humans adapted. Where others faltered in the face of impossible odds, humans persevered. And everywhere, Elias's name was spoken with respect and admiration. He walked among the soldiers, the engineers, the council members, and he saw it. A galaxy learning to value humanity. A galaxy beginning to understand that humans were not just another species, they were essential. The commander approached him one last time, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. Her eyes met his. "You did more than fix armor," she said. "You reminded the galaxy what it means to survive, to rise, and to fight when all seems lost. Humans will not be forgotten." Elias smiled faintly. "I just did what I could." "No," she said. You did what no one else could, and that is enough. The guardian armor stood tall behind them, glowing faintly in the evening sun. Its scars and patches told a story of courage, creativity, and the human spirit. And across the galaxy, the legend began, of a human engineer who fixed the unfixable and in doing so, changed the fate of countless worlds. Elias looked at it, quietly proud. He knew this was only the beginning. Humanity would rise, not with fear or destruction, but with ingenuity, courage, and the will to survive. And wherever the cracks or any threat appeared, the galaxy would remember. Humans adapt. Humans endure. Humans rise.